Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we'll have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined again by the Liz Rutledge. Good afternoon. Good morning to you, I should say. Sorry, we're different time zones here, so it's always confusing.
Good day, Mighty Pete.
Listen,
Thanks again for having me.
absolute pleasure. Great to have you on. So let's give us a bit of background again. Who are you? What do you do? And where are you from?
Well, my name is Liz Rutledge. First and foremost, I'm a mom, sister, daughter, wife, friend, and then beyond that, I live in Denver, Colorado, in the U.S. of A. But I've also lived in Boston, Atlanta, Sydney, Australia, all over the place, traveled all over the place, and just keep coming back home to Colorado. I have a business called Sustainable 3 LLC, and I focus primarily on teaching mindful sustainability, which is sustainable living on the planet, but also mindfulness about ourselves, our community, and our planet. So I have a blog, I have an online course collection with Serena Bullard, who you've also interviewed, and just am very deeply involved in my community as far as sustainability goes, involved with like street fairs and home tours and the high school after prom event and those kinds of things, and just deeply passionate about helping kids in particular find ways to alleviate stress and anxiety, especially during this time. So that's sort of my deal.
Why?
Why?
Hmm.
Why am I so passionate?
Hmm.
Very fortunate to be cared for most of my life. I've had struggles, but I don't struggle, and I feel the need to, like, I don't struggle as far as like finances, because my husband he's a management consultant, and so I feel drawn to use the time that I have to support others in learning what I've learned over the course of my life. And as I mentioned in the interview with Serena, my great grandmother was into the science of mind, which is just odd for that generation. It's all about meditation and healing through basically, thought processes. And, with The Secret, the book and the movie The Secret, thinking about law of attraction and how, and then like Louise Hay, how we can heal ourselves. So I struggled from basically birth with health issues. And then at 35, I had this huge shift. And the biggest difference was that I let go of resentments of my mother and got back to the fundamentals of what my grandmother always used to rattle off about thoughts or things, and everything is somewhere. She would say these things that and they've stuck with me. And I really think that she was sort of a guardian angel in my life. And since I've had time, like I haven't had to work a 9 to 5, 40-hour plus job to do what I do, I was able to be a stay-at-home mom, and I'm now able to teach children mindfulness techniques and and adults, how to recognize when we're going down a negativity rabbit hole, how to pull ourselves back out. And there was as I mentioned in the previous interview, there was a suicide. A boy took his own life, and actually, it's kind of controversial whether it was a suicide, but a boy took his own life, and it spurred this spark in me to be like, that boy had his whole life ahead of him, and suicide's a permanent solution to what hopefully is a temporary problem. So my hope was in teaching. I started with teens, and then I moved to primary school children, and now I'm working with adults. Mindfulness techniques and resilience techniques on how to find calm in any moment, and also just go back to gratitude. Even if everything seems horrible, there's always something to be thankful for. I can see, I can hear, I can taste, I can smell. I have clothes on my back, I have a roof over my head. And if I don't have any one of those, I have the others, and I have this life and this opportunity. And we always have the power of choice, which circles back to in 2014, I started to recognize how scary this climate crisis is for everybody. And I don't know if it's because I grew up in Colorado and I have kind of earthy, cringy parents, or just I've been passionate about the planet from a very young age. I feel like we have this beautiful planet. Like they're trying to escape off to Mars. And I'm like, wait a minute, this planet is perfect for human life, water, food, air, and we're destroying it, So wanting to give people manageable habit, the habits that they can form over time that have an impact on reducing our impact on climate change, or impact reduce the severity, hopefully, of the climate change, because it's happening. Like, we're aware it's happening, but we're in the pivotal time as humanity. So that's a very long answer, but that's my why.
How does it make you feel?
Sometimes pure total panic. Am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing something else? And other times it just feels right. And I keep getting, I guess I'd say, messages that I'm on the right track. So I've gone through a lot of self improvement work. I've read books, I've done therapy, I've did this landmark forum thing, and trying to be the best person that I can be. And one of the things I did was this passion and purpose workshop. And it just helped me solidify that I'm doing what's in alignment with my values and what I really feel drawn and passionate to do. I don't know if I'm doing it right, but and I don't know if I'm inspiring as many people as I think. To be honest with you, I went to bed last night feeling a little wonky and wobbly, and I just said to my husband, I said, I don't know if I'm making a difference. I'm cranking out these mindfulness videos every week for the local elementary school, and I have no idea where it's landing or if I'm helping them or not, and he said, Yen, you may never. And that's probably true. I just hope that I used to say if I could even get one child to not choose to take their own life because of the tools that I've taught. And I'm not saying that mindfulness is a catch-all for negative thought patterns and whatnot, but I think it does help. I know it helps me, and it's helped me get through this pandemic without antidepressants and things. So
It is an interesting one. I mean, and it's such a, as you say, it's such a permanent solution to hopefully what's a temporary problem, and we all know that, right? So things that were last week, last year, 10 years ago that seemed like the biggest thing ever, and now it's like I can't even remember what that was, so the temporariness of it. But um tell me, what does fire in the belly mean to you?
well, I think it's a deep passion where you feel drawn to something. Um, it's that thing that keeps coming back, right? The inspiration or the motivation or passion, whatever label you want to give it, that just keeps coming back. And I think you feel it in your heart, and you feel it deeply, you know.
What do you feel called, or do you get the sense that you're called to do something? Can you clear what that is?
I suppose so. I mean, my mother is an incredibly, talk about fire in the belly. My mother's a musician, and from the very young age, she, like maybe 8 or 5, I don't know, she knew she wanted to be an organist because she had seen the feet moving of an organist at a church or something. And now she's had her first church job at like 15, and now she's going to be 79 next week. And she's still playing at a church, and she'll complain that she doesn't have as much energy, and I'm like, Mom, like, you do more in a day at 78, almost 9, than most people do. So I grew up in a household with a model of drive, like somebody with drive. And so I feel like that's in me, and I've just sort of followed the breadcrumbs throughout life. And like, when my husband and I first got together, I didn't think I wanted children. I didn't think I wanted to be married. And somehow he convinced me to do both. And he really wanted 4 kids. Now we have 3. And we both thought that, I'm getting to the answer of your question. We both thought that I would go back to work after our first baby was born. And when they put her in my arms, it was like, I guess it felt like a calling. Like, this is what I'm doing now. And there was no question in my mind. And so then I had to like work it out with my husband, like, yeah, I'm not going back to work. And the main reason ultimately ended up being perfect is because he's a management consultant and he traveled 4 days or more a week. And so he was gone more than he was home some years. And I really feel like it's better to raise, would be better for me to raise our children rather than like work to pay a nanny to raise our children. And I was digging through some boxes recently, and I'm not kidding. Like, I used to be like, I'm never getting married and I'm never having kids. And I was going through some old boxes and I came across like an old kinder, something, when I grow up, I want to be. And I had written a mom. And I just was like, yes, because now my children are 20, 18, and 15 and halfway out the house. And it just feels like, especially now that it feels like a blink since they were babies, it does feel like a calling in as far as being a mother. And then the other bits just sort of fell into place. I don't know if they were whispers in my head or if I had just read that article at the right time to be like, right. I just remember when that boy took his own life, I was like, no, we've got to do something more. There's just something. I have to do something to be a part of the solution to this, because children can't be taking their own lives. They have their whole lives ahead of them, and who knows what their purpose is and their passion. And if they're not finding it because they feel sad or depressed or blue, or maybe they've got something chemical going on that can be righted with medication or meditation or support groups, who knows what. Yeah. So
Why do you know why it triggered you so much? I'm not saying
I
it
just,
shouldn't,
the
of
shock of
course.
it. I suppose I was naive. My oldest at the time was 12. And I just remember thinking, like, he's only 2 years older than my daughter. And I can't believe that somebody that age would even know how to do that. And I suppose I was naive, but I had gone to the school counselor and said, I want to do something to help make sure this doesn't happen again. And yeah, she hooked me up with another student to be her mentor, and I did that for a while, and then I can't even remember how I started teaching mindfulness at the school, and then I did that for 9 years. And I've had a child. One of the students was as an 8th grader. Here we say 8th grade. She was like, I know who you are. And we were doing makeup for a play or something, and she said, I know who you are. She said, in 6th grade, when we were in that big room, auditorium of 250 kids, I was trying to see how that worked. And she said, I'll never forget something you said. And she said, you said, if you feel uncomfortable closing your eyes because you're worried about somebody staring at you, close your eyes. And she said, I'll never forget that. And that just changed something in me. And I was like, wow, okay. So oftentimes I don't know what I'm going to say. It just sort of comes. So I don't know what that is, but it sort of feels like channeling at times. Just the right words. Like before we came on today, I was like, I hope I find the right words. Because
Welcome to my
I'll
world. I
just
have no
be
idea what I'm
present.
going to say. It's just, you just turn up and put the microphone on. It's like, what are we going to talk about? I have no idea. And that's okay.
Exactly. And I feel like I'm blathering on, but
No.
yeah.
Talk to us about mindfulness. Sorry. What is it, and what's the practice or the potential behind it, I suppose?
Well, mindfulness is a great buzzword these days, and at least here in the supermarkets, you'll see magazines with mindfulness and wellness and all kinds of things on the front cover, and you'll read articles about it, and really all it is just getting present in a moment without judgment. So for me, it's breath work and ritual and routine, but there's so much more to it. And I teach a course. Actually, I run through this with the children and the teens. I'll go through all the five senses of mindful smelling, mindful eating, mindful listening. We do mindful movement, and we think about textures and colors and how different things affect us. So does the sound of a jackhammer outside distract you from being able to focus on your homework? In which case, can you practice some mindful listening and get really present? Or can you turn on some music to help you focus? And not letting things jar us and upset us so much. The more we practice it, the more sort of control we have over our own experience. So in addition to the five senses, we explore different breath patterns. And then over the years, I've learned some people don't like to be told how to breathe. And some people get anxious if there isn't a timer ticking down or not aware of the time or whatever else. Some people aren't comfortable closing their eyes because of trauma. So I try to cater the way I teach the mindfulness to accommodate anyone. So the way I'll share it is, and if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, that's okay. Just try to look down at the floor or at your hands or whatever. And then we get into gratitude and heartfulness and kindness and generosity and all these things, that practices that can help us be better people in the world. But there's a feedback loop with that, right? So when we're kind to others, we get a little bit of a kickback of that kindness because it feels good to do good. And with gratitude, I'm telling you, like, even I, after practicing this for years, have moments where I have a lot of doubt that I'm on the right trajectory and feel like, maybe this isn't, maybe I should just go get a job at Starbucks or something, because what I'm doing isn't necessarily paying the bills yet, but it feels like that calling. It feels like the right thing to be doing. But when I do start having those moments of imposter syndrome or self-doubt, I just come back to gratitude. And like you said, look at a year ago, how much has changed in a year, how far we've come, and learned so much. Even, COVID has taught us all so much about ourselves and about, being hygienic and being patient, learning how to navigate loneliness and disconnection, or the opposite, being all crammed into one house when, your children are home and you have to homeschool them. And that's a whole test. Being able to recognize, like, look, I got to step away. And even if you have to go in a closet to take a minute, find your center, find your grounding. And so I think mindfulness is recognizing that every single moment of every day, we have a choice and we can choose again and again and again. And it may not always be easy, but we can choose to take a different path. We can choose happiness. We can choose calm. We can step away and not scream at our kids, or whatever it is. So, yeah.
How did Sustainable 3 come about then?
Well, I wanted it to be, this is 2014 when I established my .com, and I wanted it to be Sustainable Me, like Despicable Me, because I thought that would be cute. And that was already taken.
Boo.
So then I decided to do Sustainable 3, and then I was like, well, wait a minute. I have 3 kids. We're the third planet from the sun. It could be taking 3 deep breaths. It could be changing 3 habits at a time, or 3 levels of depth for habit forming to be more sustainable. Yeah, so it sort of evolved into that. And yeah, it was just because I couldn't use the other one, But that's okay.
Things happen for the right reason, right? Do you believe in fate? Do you believe in divine order, or is it just we're just plodding along?
I think some things are fated in the sense of, like I said earlier, apparently I was fated to be a mom. I mean, in preschool, I used to always be in the playing house, in the little playhouse. Uh, I also used to be a teacher. I also used to have a little play school, and now I teach. I come from a long line of teachers, so maybe that's fated. I'm not sure because I also think that we have choice all along the way,
Hmm.
and there's power in that. So one of the things I learned when I did that landmark forum, I was feeling really overwhelmed by being a mother of three in a foreign country where my husband was gone. I think that year he spent more nights at a Marriott than at home because of his work.
Three
And
kids.
I felt,
That's good going.
yeah, three
Yeah.
seems like a lot, right? Well, here's the kicker.
Hmm.
My coach had 10 kids. And I was like, wow, she doesn't even have to say anything. And I got it. Like, you think three is hard. So I recognized through doing that process that I could leave at any time. I could. I'd be a jerk, it would be a really horrible thing to do. But I did have the power to just leave.
Hmm.
I could abandon my children. I could leave my husband. That would be a horrible thing to do, but there was power in that. And recognizing that every day I choose to be a wife and a mom. And every day I choose to continue to encourage people to be more caring about themselves and the planet. And there's power in that. And recognize that power of choice. And it isn't always easy, but whether we're fated or not, I do think we do have some control over our path.
There is something there, isn't there? Really, that reclamation of the dark side. As you say, it's we all have options, no matter where and what you're doing in life. We have options, and people say, "Oh, don't talk like that," and it's like, well, there's something about it, right? So once you can say, well, yeah, I've looked at my options and I'm choosing what I'm gonna do and I'm choosing what I'm not gonna do. And that's different. As opposed to hoping and praying that it all works out. You say, well, I've reviewed my options, both the light and the dark and all the rest. And saying, yeah, this is my choice. This is the way forward. I'm choosing to choose life and choose what I want to do. It's powerful, right? You do see that I mean, I think it's with Landmark, they talk about that, don't you? They split the story from the fact, which seems to be a very powerful thing to do. And I don't know why does that come into mindfulness as well? It's just looking at the energy behind our thoughts.
Yeah, I mean that I bring up the analogy of like the Matrix or Shrek or some of those movies where they go into super slow motion. And I think it sort of gets like that when you really, if you meditate for a minute, especially the kids are like, gosh, that was so long. But a minute can also go back by like that,
Mm.
right? And when in that presence, we can observe something almost like it's sitting in front of us, and we can look at it from all sides and go, wait a minute, is this wrong? Was what that person said wrong? I've had situations where I thought, like, in response to a text once, I slept on my response. I looked up a word to make sure I was speaking very succinctly, and my word choice ended up completely backfiring. And I just immediately was like, that's not what I meant. That's not what I said. And I caused this upset unintentionally, and just couldn't get back to what I meant to say. And I think that's so fascinating because I really was trying so hard to communicate really effectively, and I still messed up. So maybe there's some fate in there. but yeah, just taking the time to, but just like in that moment, I was texting with a very good friend. I could feel how upset she was. Like I could feel it in my body through text. And it was all about that choice, that power of choice. And she didn't like that the way I had said what I said about the choice. And she's a very good friend of 24 years, and we haven't spoken since August, and now it's end of November. And so that's been hard, but it's a crystallizing experience when you get really present. And instead of making her wrong, I started to see it from her perspective and go, I get why she's reacting this way. And I'm really hoping that her true upset with doesn't actually have to do with me, because there's been a clear misunderstanding. And that's why we don't have world peace yet. I think because we don't know what's going on in other people's heads and what their thought processes are and what their experiences are. Actually listened to a podcast about, there was a shooting here in Wisconsin, Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't know if you've heard about this over there. They started out by just taking the facts. And in the facts, I was like, oh, I have so much more compassion for him. And then they gave the two different political sides of the situation. And I immediately felt pulled in one direction. And if you think about the news, at least here in America, everything's politicized and dramatized to create a reaction. And without that, taking a pause and going, wait a minute, let's fact check this. Let's look at this from all the different sides. We inevitably get pulled one way or another with our opinions about a topic. So I think there could be a lot of power in more people meditating more and getting more present, because then maybe they could take a moment when they read something and go, is this fact? Is this true? And how do I feel about it? Because we have a lot more, I think we have a lot more compassion when we just go back to the facts of the case and remove the emotion and the politicizing out of it. Politicization.
But it's kind of, sometimes feels like, and to be principled is, I think, is very, for me personally, to have principles, I think is a fantastic, that's almost a responsibility as a human being. But when it spills over into you got me started now. Politicization, I'm going to make up the word, I don't know whether it exists or not, so
I don't know if that's a word either.
so I'd say it is, but we'll just keep talking confidently. But that politicization of it, that aspect, when we lose the run of ourselves, or we step over our own principles, or try to affect others with our truth, our principles, that's I don't know, how does that feel? Is that right?
I don't think it is right, but I don't know where we go from here, because they've also studied um, the psychology of politics, and the politicians only win as long as there's a divide. So
Yeah.
the psychology of it, it's like we have to feel like there are two sides, or at least two sides, to an issue, to a problem.
There's energy in the contrast, isn't it? But that doesn't mean it's healthy. It just means there's energy there, and that could be good or bad. But yeah. Tell me this: what's your core values or soul values, whichever way you see it?
Be kind, treat others as you would like to be treated, which is not always easy.
Mm.
Um, hmm. Yeah, I think being kind and acknowledging. I don't mean to keep talking about Landmark, but right after I did Landmark, it was like I could really see people through whatever they were wearing or however their hair was styled or however they smelled, you know. And I could really see the human inside. And I think if we could get more to that space, then treating others as we'd like to be treated, that
Mm.
golden rule would be much easier. Um, yeah, care about the planet, care about each other, care. If you have means, give to others. It's definitely charity is definitely baked into my value system. Go through life with an open mind.
Mm. See what you can learn.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh yeah, never stop learning.
what was the original plan then with Mini Liz? What was she going to do when she grew up?
Well, apparently mini Liz wanted to be a mom, but slightly older Liz wanted to travel the world and just see. I would have these sort of premonitions when I would see a picture or watch a movie or something about a place, and I'd be like, I'm going to go there someday. And I haven't been everywhere yet, but I sure have enjoyed. Like, we lived in Australia for 4.5 years, and I got to feel Australian. Like, after 4.5 years, you pretty much lose your your home culture, and you feel more like a child of the universe, sort of a thing. And I really thought I wanted to be first I wanted to be a flight attendant, and then I wanted to be an ambassador to France. And I
Why?
think I mentioned in the other interview, I didn't realize you had to know the president to be an ambassador, so that didn't last very long. Yeah, I loved teaching. I loved traveling, and just to be able to go different places and smell the air and feel the weather and taste the food and meet people, and I just think that's awesome.
What does that teach you? What can you learn from that?
Well, in the case of living in Australia, it taught me that, wow, America is really America centric, especially with its news. Australia is too, but they're so much more in tune with what's going on globally. And getting out of our comfort zone, getting out of our home country helps us um, understand others better. I think that really, I mean, if money was no object or if it was possible, I think that it would be great if all students, maybe high school or early uni or whatever, sometime around early 20s, maybe, if they could do study abroad. Um, wow. I mean, the world would be such a different place. I really think that if we could go and put ourselves, it's that whole like walk a mile in somebody else's moccasins thing. Like, if we could understand what it's like for them, then maybe there would be less war and conflict, and we could all get on the same page. It seems to me the only time this world ever unites is when we have something, and there's movies made about this, right? Something to unite against, that whole dichotomy of having to have a good and evil, a light and dark. And I really do feel like the climate crisis is the thing that we could unite around. In America, at least, there's this debate as to whether climate change is real and whether or not humans actually have that much of an impact. And that's why I'm always very careful to say reduce our impact on the severity of climate change. Um, I think I think that maybe there's less judgment if we go and live in other cultures, because we can, like I said, see it from their side, but also but then what do we do with that? Can we come back and teach others? And my experience was, after 4.5 years in Australia, I came back to America and people didn't really care about my experience. So I had to learn that that was my experience and I own it. But maybe I show up differently because I had that experience. Um, I've also been to Ireland. I kissed the Blarney Stone when I was 5 months pregnant with our first, and they were convinced I was going to make me have twins. And I was like, what?
That's good
So
going
I've,
to do that when you're heavily pregnant. It's not easy at the best of times. So well done.
yeah, it wasn't easy, but I've, bought a wool sweater because of the moisture and the chill in the air. And previous to that, I've had Guinness. Like I was there in '97 for the marathon. Tasted Guinness. Guinness tastes no better than in Ireland. Coffee tastes no better than in Italy. I mean, like it's, I don't know. It's just experiencing the world, and there was a tsunami in, I think, 2008, was it, in Thailand? And when we lived in Australia, we went to visit Thailand twice, and we had this amazing opportunity, one of the visits, to go tour to a we went to a temple, and they had all these pictures of these bloated purple bodies in the temple of the people that had died in that tsunami. And that is not something that I'd seen in the news. And it just gave me a whole new perspective on what that experience was like for those people. And I guess it heightens our sense of compassion too. Yeah.
It's huge, isn't it, though, that level of compassion and connection. And as you say, it is overwhelming that, in some ways you can be overwhelmed with the size of the world and all the change that needs to be done. But yet also you're sort of saying just to change yourself and to change and to help those around you. The ripple effect of that, as you say, there's people you've helped and you may never see the ripple. You never know. You don't know what that set off, and that's okay too, right? Just being okay. Do you like yourself? Do you love yourself?
I do now. I just turned 50, and so
Hey.
far, 50 is the best year. 50's been great. I think I was maybe kind of dreading it, but yeah, I mean, I feel like what's shifted for me is you may not know it from this interview, but I've become such a better listener at 50. And as our kids have started to go off to college and leave the house, and I'm like, we did it. Like we did it, and I feel good about myself, and I'm sure I didn't do it perfectly, but they're responsible, respectful, they get good grades, they're finding their way, and that feels really good. And my husband and I are in a really good place, starting to think about re-inspirement. I don't like calling it retirement. Serena and I are very in alignment and focused on our path, and my parents are getting older, and I'm extremely aware of the ticking of time, especially as during this time of COVID, a lot of people have lost their loved ones. I'm very clear that it's a priority for me to spend time with my parents before thankfully they're 20 minutes away, and so twice a week I go and spend time with my mother, who in January couldn't walk because she re-injured herself, and now she's able to walk 3 miles a day again. And I don't know if I had anything to do with that, but I feel clear about that. So I guess that's one of my values too, is family.
Hmm.
Family and friends and caring for a community. um, I I think I'm the best version of myself so far. I'm sure there's some room for improvement, but very happy with myself.
Have you been this version of yourself before?
I don't know. I think last time we talked, I said this is my 648th life, so I don't know.
It's plenty to go, right?
I think I've grown a lot in this lifetime. I keep telling my kids, like, I was a jerk in college. I was just a horrible person. I didn't realize it at the time, but I wanted to raise them to be considerate and know how to do their own clothes washing, dishwashing, pick up after themselves, pick up the tab at a restaurant or whatever. And that I just realized, like, no, I'm not, I don't think I have been this version of myself before. Maybe when I was very, very little, before life and trauma and
Hmm.
stuff.
What's the nicest thing someone could say to you?
Hmm.
See, I'm
Oh, what's the
getting you to
nicest
think
thing that
here.
somebody could say to me? um, Thank you, I guess. It would feel good to hear thank you. I don't know. That's a hard one. Happy birthday?
Well, happy birthday. There you go.
Just that I mean it's not my birthday, but just that I'm doing a good, you know what? The nicest thing somebody could say to me is that I'm doing a good job. Because as a mom and an entrepreneur, I haven't had a report card, I haven't had a raise, I haven't had any sort of external acknowledgement to say, you're doing a great job. That would feel good.
Hmm. What age do you feel that you are?
I think I still feel more like 38, except that I haven't been doing yoga as much, so my joints are kind of creaky. So maybe I feel 50. I don't know.
I don't know. It's weird because I tend to find sort of a lot of people seem to see themselves as a different age. It's like, yeah, no matter, I mean, that could be 92 or it could be whatever, and still they see themselves as this age, you know. And for me, it's probably somewhere between 21 and 27. I'm neither of those ages, just for the benefit of those not watching, you know, listening. But that's it. For some reason, it seems, I don't know, the mind seems to just almost hone in on a point, and we don't age past mentally. We stick at that zone. Does that make sense?
I wonder if that's sort of when we felt the most the most energized or the most, I don't know. 38 was a great year for me. My grandmother at like 92 used to say she still felt 16 inside. So maybe it's just sort of when we have sort of some of our best moments. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's a good point.
Hmm. What are you most
So
proud
far, I
of?
love 50 though. I mean, I could do more yoga and I'll be less creaky, and I could do my physical therapy and my knees wouldn't hurt so much, but you know,
That's all external stuff. It's the body suit, or the meat suit as they call it. You know, the rest is all good.
the meat, the meat suit. Yeah.
What are you most proud of in your life, or something you are proud of?
Mm. I'm proud of my children. They are becoming beautiful human beings. They're really, hopefully, going to do great things. As far as my own personal accomplishments, I'm proud that I decided in about 1993 that I was going to run the Boston Marathon, and I'm not a fast runner. So I also didn't realize you have to qualify to run the Boston Marathon, and I'm proud that I finally finished the Boston Marathon, not because I qualified and not because I'm a fast runner, but because I was fortunate enough to get a job at John Hancock, which was the primary sponsor, probably still is the primary sponsor, and I got on their team. And so I think it's not necessarily about the how you make your dream come true. If you still make your dream come true, it still happened. So I'm proud that I made that dream come true. I also I play the flute, and like I said, my mom is a organist, and she has played the organ all over the world. She's played in Germany. She's played on the organ in Versailles in France twice, for goodness sakes. And when we lived in Australia, I called up the Sydney Opera House and I said, "Hey, my mom's coming down. Any chance we could get her on the organ?" And of course, it didn't go exactly like that. And they said, "Yes." So I'm proud of myself for getting my mother on the Sydney Opera House organ, because that was pretty special.
What did
I'm
she
proud of my
play?
husband because he's a devoted husband and father.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Should I
What
keep
did
going? Or
you? That's great. Listen, it's great to be. And this is the thing, is people are not always good at saying the things they're proud of. I mean, it is like gratitude, right, for things that's happened and things that haven't happened too. But I am curious, what did your mother play in the Great Opera House?
Oh my gosh, I don't remember, but she had a whole program. This is my mother, right? She had a printed out program of
Was this with an
various.
audience, or were you just playing away at the
It
organ
was
with?
a small audience.
Hmm.
Have you been there?
No, I never have
By
actually.
chance? Okay, well, you've probably been in auditoriums before.
Hmm.
So if you imagine big empty auditorium, but then there were, I don't know, maybe we had 6 people, friends who had come along, and our kids running in the aisles, and my husband was mortified because they were like 3, 5, and 7 or
Yeah,
something.
rules don't count to
Um,
them. That's okay.
but the tours, they were bringing in tours. So there were tours of groups of people that would come through. So that was kind of cool. But no, it wasn't a formal concert. It was just an opportunity. So, and that
Hmm.
was okay.
Yeah, that's well, it's all that's what it's all about, right? Creating opportunities, creating ideas and solutions for people. It's what what do you think you're capable of? Do you have any idea?
Well, I used for a while there, I thought I was capable of anything, but I think their limitations are actually a good thing. Um, I think I'm capable of inspiring people. I've been told that I'm in people's heads, especially around recycling. And my friends will be like, Liz, you're in my head. Um, so I'm definitely capable of getting in people's heads. But I'd rather be remembered for inspiring people to think about things differently and maybe change their habits and be open to trying things that work for me, especially my children. I would love it if they would, instead of going, Mom, breathing doesn't work for me, be open to trying what, because the the what I teach, the meditation, the breath work, the gratitude practice, um, is what I do every day. Making sure I exercise every day is what keeps me above the line, out, on the surface of the water, so to speak. And so I'd love to know that I'd made a difference for some people. That
Hmm.
would feel good.
What's on the bucket list for you then? What's a few things we can put out there into the universe?
Well, I used to want to set foot on every continent, but that's not as much of a priority now with climate change. And I think um, living our best lives. Having said that, I'd love to get to India. I've never been to India. I'd love to explore parts of Asia, more parts of Asia. I'd love to get back to Europe with our kids. And I've done a lot. Like I've surfed, I've skied, I've scuba dived, and all these things. I'd like to fly an airplane just because that would be a neat experience. I might actually try skydiving, but ultimately, just continue to enjoy this life, as much as possible. I would like to get my book published because I wrote it in 2009 and still not published. And yes, I know I could self-publish, but that's not the same. I have a list that I make every day. I would like a carbon neutral household. We're working on it. We're almost there. We just got solar. I would like an electric car to go with the solar because that would be fun. And, I'd love to bike around wine country. And I'm trying to think of what all is on my list. Just enjoy this life,
Hmm.
fully open. I'm open for adventure.
Hmm. Is there a certain mantra or a certain set of rules that you live by?
Well, I usually come back to be kind to myself and others. Um, I keep reminding myself of, if my role is to inspire others, then I need to remind myself, like, be inspiration. So it's not It's not inspiring when you have a meltdown. It's not inspiring when you're judgmental. So catching myself, yeah, but be kind.
Yeah, kids can still push your triggers though. I don't care how
Mhm.
zen you are. Kids can
Mhm.
can just dive right past all that.
Right. And they'll tell you that I am not, they'll be like, oh, you teach this stuff, but I'm at home. And I guess that's what shifted for me with 50 is I feel more grounded in myself. I feel like I am more able to keep my temper under control. I feel like I am able to come back to that breath if I'm nervous, that deep belly breathing. Just like I don't have to say something. I don't even have to necessarily deal with, sometimes walking away is the most powerful thing or just remaining quiet. One thing I realized about my kids, and this is a good thing to know, is that they'll be well behaved for others, and then at home they completely fall apart. And I finally realized that's because they're comfortable and they feel safe to do so. So I try to, when they're having their meltdowns, I try to let them have their meltdown, let them get it out of their system, have a big cry or yell in the car, or punch the pillow, whatever they need to do, because if they're being good out in the world, that's probably more important. And if they're being kind to others, that's probably more important. Maybe they need a cry. That whole crying releases manganese, and when it builds up in your system, it increases your cortisol stress hormone. So, yeah, cry. And just try to be good to them, because I haven't always been the best to them necessarily. Sometimes being that mother of three in another country when my husband was gone a lot was really challenging. And so I haven't always been my best self with them, and probably didn't model the best behaviors. So, being able to accept people where they are and their journey and give them a space to cry. Talk it out, ask questions. What's going on for you?
Mm.
There's a great book. Oh, it's something like how to listen so kids will speak, and how to speak so kids will listen, or something like that. And it's very much like the way you run your interviews. Like you just like make them feel heard, and then they just tell you everything. And my kids tell us everything. Sometimes things we don't necessarily want to know, but it's great.
Yeah. I mean, that is a blessing to have your home as a safe space, right? That, as you say, it's like, yeah, I don't I don't need all the details, but flip side is, as you say, that's the place where they feel safe enough to break down, safe enough to bring home problems, or safe enough to talk about something that others don't. I mean, that's a yeah, that's a real blessing. That's an honor to have that.
Yeah. And I know that not all families have that. And so I guess what I would encourage parents to do is to really think about your children as these perfect, like we all come out perfect, whole, and complete. And then we end up with trauma and stories and experiences that mess us up. And then we end up with these stories in our head that alter the way we show up in the world. And if we could treat our children more like the perfect beings that they are, and maybe they'd show up as, more perfect, not perfect, whatever, more authentic, more kind, more open to, not being the bully, or,
Mm.
or if somebody is being a bully, knowing that they're good inside, like they're good, like reinforcing their inner strength. And that's where that resilience piece comes in. If somebody says you're, something unkind, and is it true? Maybe that would be the question to ask. Is it true? Is that a fact? And if it's not, then what do you do with that, right? And so I used to coach, and I still coach the mindfulness kids that I have a club now at the middle school. There's three very powerful words that you can say if somebody's being mean to you. That's not okay. That's not okay. And showing up, bullies react to strength. So showing up. But I would say for parents, getting back to my point of, a lot of families, there is a lack of security. Sometimes it's food insecurity, sometimes it's income insecurity. And really, to survive and thrive through that, families need to stay together. And it's not always easy. And so if parents can just allow themselves some space to be human and vulnerable and share, what we're going through is kind of scary, and I really need for you to be kind right now. I really need you to be quiet right now, or whatever it is. That's one of the things that I think we've done with our kids is we talk to them like they were people, and they've shown up as people with all, like you say, warts and all.
Mm.
But I don't want to make light of the fact that there are people that are really struggling out there. They can't make their rent. They can't, pay their mortgage. They can't make their car payment to get to work, or, they don't live close to the bus stop to get to work. And maybe they lost their job because they had got COVID and missed 10 days, and hearing all these really challenging stories. So if we can come back to the fact that, well, if we had children, we love them on some level. We love them forever and always, no matter what they do or what happens. And if we can come back to that, come back to love, we can get through anything.
Mm. It comes back to choice too, doesn't it? It's, you got to choose that that's the way you want to be or where you want to live. Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of where do you see yourself?
I'm in the basement of my house in Denver, Colorado.
In years
Can you
to
say that
come.
a different way?
Yeah. Do you have a vision? Do you have I suppose a viewing or just a sense of where you're going to be? Do you have that? Do you get that? And when you're working with other people, do you get in? Are you quite intuitive with other people?
I do feel like I'm intuitive with other people. I'm incredibly sensitive. If I had to label myself, I'd say I'm an empath. And so I can actually feel other people's energies. And as far as where I see myself, like on the trajectory of my work and my life, um, sometimes I feel like we're just like, especially Serena and I with our wellness course collection, like we're on the verge of just really soaring. And other times I'm like, oh, what am I doing? But it seems like there's that follow the breadcrumbs thing, and it just really feels right. Like I said, I keep getting these sort of messages in different ways, and I think we talked about before about like the weird number thing. Like I see double, triple, quadruple numbers all the time, which is, if you Google it, is sort of like you're on the right path. And so I see myself about to take off with like going bigger with the work that we do. And I think it was kind of a powerful choice, but maybe a scary choice to merge the mindfulness with the sustainability, because I see it as mindfulness. It's all mindfulness, like being mindful about not throwing litter on the ground, or choosing to pick up trash, or
Mm.
choosing to recycle something, or choosing to reuse, like using a reusable water bottle, making that choice. That's mindfulness, showing up at the airport with an empty water bottle so you can fill it on the other side of security, instead of buying a single-use plastic bottle that might end up in that plastic ocean island. Is a choice, but that's mindfulness. It's all mindfulness. And so I think that the fact that mindfulness has become more of a buzzword, more popular, more people are thinking about it, and maybe changing their ways to be more that way. And I hope that I get to be part of that. I recognize that it's a very full, I've walked into a crowded room of a bunch of other people that are teaching mindfulness and sustainability, but hopefully the way I bring it, and Serena and I bring it to the world, resonates with people in a different way. Like we are both very focused on bringing the science behind it, so it takes the woo-woo factor out, and maybe that's where we cross a threshold towards more people being more mindful, and then maybe that goal of world
Mm.
peace, or whatever it looks like, everyone getting along with each other better, maybe less chance of mutually assured destruction, will be a possibility. And maybe we can slow down this climate change crisis that's going down so we can reset. We know because during the lockdown that the planet will be fine. Humans might be screwed, but the planet will be fine. So if we want to have a continued life on this planet, which is the only planet that we know of that supports human life, we need to take care of it. So I hope to be part of that conversation. I hope to get in more people's heads.
Why not? Yeah. So give
Time
us
for a
a
glass of water. Drink of
yeah.
water.
So give us a bit of a background then. So the course that you're doing together with Serena there. So it is, you talk about that winning wellness, that sort of that experience for people. So give us a bit of background what the intention is there and what is exactly you do for people.
Well, we joined forces at the end of 2018, and through 2019, we started doing these workshops where we merged. So I teach about mindfulness and sustainability, and she teaches about resilience, happiness, and visioning. And our goal was to dovetail and merge all of our teaching, all of our learnings, all of our experience. We've both done a ton of work on ourselves and read a bunch of books and watched a bunch of videos and done a bunch of courses. And what we're trying to do in this winning wellness experience presentation is an efficient presentation of a little bit of the science behind what we teach for uh, authenticity. That's not the word I'm looking for, but to bring it in a way that people are like, okay, I don't need to question this. There's science behind it. And then give people tools that they can do every day so that it becomes part of their routine, part of their day, like the way you probably get up and brush your teeth. Or you get up, eat breakfast, have a cup of coffee, brush your teeth. Like there's something that you do every day, and for at least for Serena and me, every day we get up, she calls hers her RPM, rest, pee, meditate, but we get up, we take care of the human functions, and then we go and meditate. And I think we both meditate for about 30 minutes in the morning. And then for me, I know it's a gratitude. So it's making a list of 5 things I'm thankful for. And then I have my 17 goals and dreams I'm making happen. And I write them out every day. And there's science around that too. They've shown that if you write down a goal, that it's more likely to come true. The part that I think is our hook or our unique offering is the visioning piece. So the mindfulness, the happiness and resiliency, and science of well-being is all backed by science. And the part that's a little out there, but they're starting to prove it with a little bit of science, like I said, is this visioning piece. So you set a goal for yourself, and then you don't worry about the how. It's sort of like they say about, like, if you want to go somewhere in a destination, you're going to put the address into the GPS, and the GPS will get you there. And so we write, okay, what's the pie in the sky dream? And then, like, what's one step you could take towards that dream? And then there are actually 10 steps, but she covers 3 in our course collection. And so the goal is to get that out to as many people as possible, but especially to support moms like me who maybe felt overwhelmed, and recognize, like, it can be as simple as like going into the bathroom and taking 3 deep breaths and then coming back out, and then I can deal with my crazy 5 and 3-year-old twins, and also, like, how we show up in the world, like before you go into a meeting or before you go on Zoom. Can you take a second to take a slow, deep breath and acknowledge who you want to show up as? Who do I want to show up as in the world? And again, I think we both teach this stuff because we've been through the stuff. And, we've both had some near-death experiences or scary things that have happened, and maybe it's clumsiness, and maybe it's like the universe pounding us over the head, like, don't be dumb. For me, it brought life lessons around how powerful of a manifester I am, and how there were little whispers of, like, you really should look before you cross the street with your bike, before I shattered a windshield with my head, listening to that intuitive voice. We're all born with intuition. And so through the mindfulness and resiliency training, we can be, like, I call it flip the script. We can be prepping and resetting. We can be taking a minute, whatever you want to call it. But we don't have to be feeling like other things are controlling our lives, even when it's almost, I had a almost died 3 times or had a scuba accident scare. And, we don't have to make things mean things that they don't mean. Sometimes it's just like, well, you didn't pay attention to that little intuitive whisper. And sometimes, like losing a job or losing a family member or like I lost my best friend at age 35. It, there's a lesson in there. There's an opportunity for growth. And so getting people to remove the judgment and remove the resentment and go, where is the lesson in here? And what can I do with this? And how can I proceed through life powerfully? That's our goal. So I think our goal, our target customer would be moms, parents, maybe dads, who are maybe struggling through this time. And then we would love to work with organizations, corporations, schools, frontline workers, medical workers who are probably really struggling right now, and giving them these scientifically proven tools to reset.
It's beautiful. What an amazing mission, and I salute you guys for, for doing that. Because as you say, it is something I think so many people need these days. It's, for the last, whatever, 18 months, 24 months has taught us so much, which we can be very grateful for, but it's come with sharp and harsh lessons too, which, it all needs filtered and processed, right? That's the thing about it. It's perspective. We can say that it's been an opportunity, or we can say it's been the worst thing ever. So who are we? Who knows? Who knows? It's yeah. What's a wee guilty pleasure for you there, Liz?
Well, lately it's Netflix.
With wine, with
Gosh,
chocolate, with crisps.
Ted, yeah, chocolate, wine, Ted Lasso. If you haven't watched Ted Lasso, oh my gosh, pay for Apple Plus, whatever it is. So good. Like he's just putting positivity out in the world. But yeah, dark chocolate, good wine, a really good meal, time with my husband, snuggling on the couch. Yeah, all those things.
And where's your place of inspiration then? Where do you go and get topped up, consciously or unconsciously?
Well, I live in Colorado, so this one's a hard one because really my true place to reset and charge up is the ocean. But if I can't do that, because thankfully the oceans haven't risen so much that we have ocean in Colorado yet, getting out in nature. So when I'm really like, if I'm sitting too long on Zoom or I'm really struggling, if I can go move my body, go for a walk. We have a park near our house, so we'll just go walk around the park, and it's about 3 miles all in. And sometimes it's just a walk around the block, but then it's looking up at the sky, even if it's gray, breathing in fresh air, just getting out in nature. And if I can get up to the mountains, that's pretty special too. So,
Oh, lovely. So tell us, if you could describe your fire in your belly in 1 or 2 words, what would they be, Liz?
Fire in my belly. 2 words or 3 words? Because really, it's be the change. That I think it was Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world.
You can have 3. Most people take about 40. So yes, if we're debating between 2 and 3, I can live with that. That's okay. That's
I think
beautiful.
that so yeah, so the fire I'm working towards is, and I don't do it every day, and I don't do it every moment of every day, but try to be that change you want to see in the world, because that's where you have the biggest impact. And I've learned that's where I have the biggest impact.
Yeah. What's the one thing you'd love to say but quite often can't?
Oh gosh. uh Well, okay. Can I tell you a little story?
Please.
There are two things that trigger me very, very badly. One is when people leave the water running, and one is when people leave their car engines running, because I'm just like I'm just aware of the waste of, the water and the pollution going into the air. And yesterday there was a man in front of our house, a worker working on the house across the street, and he had his car engine just running. And he's sitting in his car and he's eating his lunch. And I just wanted to say, turn your engine off. And I used to do that. Like our neighbors across the street used to warm up their cars, and I would get so angry inside. And I would just be like, God, don't you know? Like you're just polluting the air and on my block. And yesterday I went and got these two granola bars, and I brought them over and I waved in the window, and he put his window down, and I handed them, and I said, I thought you'd like some dessert with your lunch. And I said, and would you mind turning your engine off, because it's just polluting the air. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And he turned off the engine. I thought, what a better way to show up. But that's what I'd love to say that I try not to say, which is like, turn off your car engine. Turn off the water. My kids will tell you that I say it all the time in the house, but yeah, that. But I'm learning how to show up more kindly.
I love that. It's like, yeah, we all have to be mindful still. Is like, what I really want to say is this, but I'm gonna go get something sweet and we're gonna do this right.
And that was a first, because my sister the other day was like, there was something similar that happened the other day, and she was like, take him cookies. And I was like, and then I thought, yeah, that would just throw him off so much that maybe he wouldn't get angry when I'm like, would you turn your engine off? So
yeah, no, very true, very true. Well, you see, there you go. It's another little ripple in the universe, So, do we get to know what your book's ever going to be called?
My book is called Fidelity, and it's a semi-fiction book about a woman who's married with children but has fantasies about other men. And she goes through her whole life and she remains faithful. And then when her husband dies and she's in her sort of mid-70s, she meets a new love online, and it's sort of exploring like what it's like to date when you're in your mid-70s using like a dating app type thing.
Wow.
And like I said, it's sitting on the shelf, so I might put it out there. But I have some other book ideas that are brewing. So
very good. the creative side of you is just bursting to come out. So Stella says, where can people learn more, to find you, hunt you down, stalk you, any of the above?
I have a website at sustainable3.com, and it's THREE, so sustainable THREE.com. But really, I'd love it if people would check out that winningwellness.learnworlds.com, because that's where we've put our hearts and souls into making that a really juicy course collection. But if anyone's interested in the blog about sustainable living, I have some tips and tricks up there. And if they wanted to follow me on Instagram, I am Sustainable3 on Instagram and Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel. If anyone's interested in some of the mindfulness I do, when we went into lockdown, I did 60 days, every single day, mindfulness videos that are all up on YouTube at Sustainable3. And I have a couple sustainability videos up there, like how to line dry clothes and how to recycle properly, and really exciting topics like that.
Very good. I love it. Love it. Is there a final message you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate the opportunity to share what I do, and I guess I would just encourage people to find their fire in their belly, find what you love and pursue it with gusto, and be kind.
Always be kind. Be kind. Liz, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for coming back on and sharing. And listen, we wish you all the best for the future. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.